Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name's Mark McNulty, and I'm president of Action Coach Bluegrass. And today I have with me Lars Griggs, who is the CEO of Woodall Roofing and Exteriors. Welcome, Lars.
Good to be here, Mark.
Thanks so much. So today we're going to be talking about Lars' business, his journey to leading this business for the owner, and the challenges and best practices that he's experienced and gone through, and share a peek in what it's really like to run a business these days. So if this is your first time on the channel, please go ahead and like and subscribe so you get notifications of future interviews as they drop. So Lars, welcome, and thanks again for being here today.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Woodall Roofing and Exteriors and how you got to become CEO and running the business for the owner.
Yeah, Woodall, it's in the name, Woodall Roofing and Exteriors. We're a full service roofing contractor. We have a residential division, a commercial division, been in business since 2005. I started with Woodall about 4 years ago. My background is in construction. I went to school for construction engineering, and I've worked in multiple phases of commercial, heavy industrial type of contracting until I got to Woodall. Woodall was a fast-moving business. I came to Woodall excited about the innovation aspect of everything. It wasn't really roofing that drew me here. Our owner had a really good vision for what he wanted. And so I started here as a project manager, managing projects for the commercial division. But I'd say a good half of my time here from almost the very beginning was working on how do we grow the business and trying to think outside the box and some things. So it's kind of been a long journey for me here. I've served in multiple roles and kind of worn multiple hats and been involved in the leadership team and like kind of steering the direction of the company. And we've grown 32% over the last 5 years if you use a compound annual growth rate. So like there have been several of us along that and multiple iterations of team and who's on the bus and who's off the bus and things like that. But most of my time's been spent commercial, and then took over as the CEO to continue the growth and to expand.
So, when we talked last week, you shared a little bit about during that 4 years, there's been a lot of change that's made Woodall really a different company today that you're leading versus the company that you were hired into.
Yeah.
What's that journey been like?
Yeah, so that was difficult actually. So when we got here, our owner had a vision, but his team really wasn't rallied around that vision. And so we had to kind of deal with those issues and roadblocks. And a lot of the early time of me being here at Woodall, the roadblocks that we faced were trying to find the right people to do the right thing, first and foremost. And second of all, whether they needed to be on the bus or not. And, because when you're trying to make those plans, you need to surround yourself with the folks that are willing to buy into the vision of where you're going. If you don't know where you're going and everybody on the bus is not ready to go, you're going to have issues, right? So in all of that, the biggest challenge has been the people. It's also been the biggest part of our success is once you start hitting a lick on who's on the bus and who is actually bought into where we're going and willing to innovate with you and not get frustrated because things aren't figured out. Because we've grown so fast, there's been a lot of things that have outgrown us in the process. So we've changed finance softwares, we've changed project management softwares multiple times because we've grown faster than they can keep up with the amount of business we're doing. And so one of the other biggest challenges we had was we used to do everything. The slogan of Woodall Companies used to be Woodall does it all. And I used to say that's the biggest problem we've got is we do it all. And so we really, really cut out and said, what do we do well? And then started investing, focusing, and refining what we did well. And when we did that, that exploded growth because we were actually able to perpetuate the positives that we can deliver rather than doing things that we were just trying to do to keep cash flow running. We got to a point where we had enough of what we specialized in going that we didn't have to focus on trying to get revenue streams from other areas because we were small. We were just growing quick and trying to keep cash coming in the door during COVID and everything else, so that was all difficult. But those are some challenges that we faced, and I think that turned into big opportunities for us in the long run.
Yeah, so you kind of said, you're a different kind of roofing company. So
yeah,
what's different about you?
So a lot of roofing companies and roofing is a commodity. So a lot of people, whenever they deal with roofing, they look at it as like a transactional process. It's like going to the store to buy groceries. Well, I've got to buy a roof. And so you start looking around, you go, well, I want the best price for my roof. We really don't start there. We start with, what do you actually want? We start asking the question. So like with a homeowner, we start looking at, okay, obviously you need a roof, but what are you trying to get out of your roof? A lot of companies aren't asking that question. And it seems almost redundant. Like, obviously I don't want my roof to leak, but like, are you planning on being in this house for the next 35 years? If you are, then you might want to invest into some things a little bit different than you would normally. And one of those things might be like a different component that increases the longevity of the system, or possibly a weather tightness warranty or something. And commercially, we do the same thing, but it's really consultative. In the commercial world, a lot of companies just will see what's bidding out there and send the bid. If they get the low bid, then they're done. Well, we really took ourselves out of that market and started really focusing on the types of clients we like to work with and building a relationship that really looks at their full picture. What problems do you have, especially folks that have multiple facilities, and really take that consultative evaluation and go, hey, this building, if you're going to grade it on a scale A, B, C, D, F, you're on a D on this building. You need to focus on this one before you do this. And just being able to provide people with a full picture is much different, because again, most of the time you get a call, they say, hey, come bid my roof, and you put a price together, and then you walk away if you don't get it, or if you do, you do the job. That's the way most people see it. But the way we look at it is a lot more than that. We're going after the hearts and the minds of the individuals we serve. This is about roofing, but this is really about serving this client, not necessarily about just getting this project done. So because of that, that helps us make some value-driven decisions rather than cost-driven decisions. Obviously, you have to deal with cost, but the value part of it is the part that people have a hard time understanding until they go, oh, if I spend $10,000 today, that actually could be $150,000 later because I have hail protection on my roof, and my insurance on my building is for 3% of the insured value, and that's more than the cost of the roof. So if a hailstorm comes in and destroys my roof, I've got to put that on at my own cost again. It's destroyed. But if we insure it with a system design and provide that hail protection in the system, they're not stuck with that. We see that a lot with schools and some of our bigger clients. They have a high deductible. That's more than that replacing the roof would be. So asking those questions help, because we could just come put a roof on that doesn't leak. That's the driving factor of roofing, but that is not the only one. And it's a little bit more complicated than just pulling something off and putting it on. So, and we view it that way because we think about it in that value-driven approach rather than just, we're going to complete this job for you.
Yeah. So you mentioned, the owner, the old team, when you first came in, really didn't share the owner's vision, right? So share a little bit about what is that vision? I'm sure it's related to what you said, but how would you describe
it? And so this is one thing that was awesome, because our owner is such an entrepreneur, and he has that keen ability to say, I want to grow, or I think this is kind of where we need to go. But as far as that goes, one of the issues that we were running into is like, he would have the vision, which was great, but getting tracks on the ground, getting boots on the ground, heading toward that vision was hard. And I'm much more of a rallier, and I'll just say, okay, that's what you want to do, then we're going to do it. You say build it, we'll go. And that drives me. I'm driven by that. He's driven by vision. I'm driven by, okay, let's do it. So, his vision was really to grow a business. In his opinion, would be to grow a business that the Lord can bless, is how he would put it. We want to be the type of business the Lord can bless. So we're going to put ourselves in a lot of positions to grow. And so whenever I would talk with him, and I would get frustrated initially, he's like, I just want to grow. I'm like, what does that mean? And so like for me, I'm like, we need to define what that means, And so the last 4 years have been defining what it means to grow and really posturing ourselves in such a way that we're able to in the right way. Because there's plenty of ways we can grow, but we want to grow in the right way, in a sustainable, replicatable way. And so we're trying to make decisions that are based upon being good stewards of what we have that is ours now, and doing that excellently, and posturing for more, whether that be new market, whether that be serving more clients in our area, or whatever. We're going to do the best we can with those types of things. So I used to get frustrated because the vision wasn't there for what type of growth you wanted, other than grow, and I want to grow the right way. And then we had to define it. And so what we kind of came up with was the vision is the Woodall Way is what we call it here. So we're going to do this roof the Woodall Way. And it's something that we've defined in kind of three tenets, which is stewardship, excellence, and growth, which I just said. Those are the three pillars that hold up the Woodall Way, is because we're going to take these things that we've been entrusted with doing and do them in a way that we are using those resources, allocating things, being the most efficient as possible. And we're going to do them excellently. We're going to focus on that first, and then we're going to focus on growing second. Because if we figure if we can do the first two right and we can execute in stewardship and excellence, then growth will be easy. Because our barrier is not ourselves. Our barrier is going to be other things. And the other things are easier to overcome than the things that we can deal with ourselves. So that, creates projects that are delivered on time, that creates projects that are more efficient. Our overhead cost is not through the roof because we're being inefficient, wasting resources, which in turn helps us price these roofs in a more competitive way in the market and things like that. And so those really drive us. So vision is something we talk about here all the time. And it's kind of one of those things that we're all in the right place. We're all moving in that way. So we're all thinking about growth, but we're thinking about growth the right way. And for me, my job is to come in and say, how are we going to grow? He said, I want to grow. And I go, okay, well, how? Well, part of what I've defined was that stewardship and excellence part. We need to focus on this and then go this direction. So to him, he wants to grow as big as the Lord would have us to be. And we're going to set ourselves up for that and kind of entrust ourselves to those things. So if that helps, I don't know if that answers the question well, but.
No, that's a great answer. And I love your three tenets. So that's awesome. So how do you market that, right? How do you obviously I'm assuming like a lot of roofing companies, you get referrals from happy customers, but you also have to do marketing. And so how do you market that message?
Yeah.
What's
so
that
obviously we have, the website. We're aware of all the little things that you need to do. You need to be making sure you're getting good reviews, which is way more important than how many dollars you spend on the internet trying to get up to the top. One thing that we have a hard time balancing is how much money do we spend on ads on Google or search engine optimization, stuff like that. So we do all of those scientific type of things that my marketing director is much better at than I am. But, we really try to posture ourselves as the trusted experts. We're not the only ones out there that do this, but we're the only ones that can give you a roof the Woodall way. And that's how we look at it. So when we go out to a client, our intention is to give you a rock solid system. Not only do you get a roof, but you get our team. And so that's a little different. Everybody here is accessible, right, to this homeowner or to the business owner. And because of that, and because of the consultative approach, we're asking lots of questions and we're getting across those things. So when we market that, we're marketing ourselves. We're saying, listen, we're committed to continuing education. Our folks are certified inspectors. They're certified in multiple layers of things. We're focusing on making ourselves the expert. We're not just saying, hey, we're experts like everybody else in the world. Everybody's an expert these days. It seems like, that's what you read on the news. Experts say, well, we're trying to show people how we get to that approach. One of the unique things that we do when it comes to trying to get our name out to folks is we think we've built a really good brand, but if there's a neighborhood that has a big group of houses that are all in age that they would need a roof, we'll take and do a mail campaign for 2,000 houses. And then we'll go out, all of our trucks are lettered up and stuff. We'll drive around the neighborhood and we'll put a sign out there. We aren't going to knock on doors. We might put a door hanger on something, but we're not trying to knock on a door and sell a roof. We're just saying, hey, we're aware that there's a need here. We want to be the people that are top of mind. And so when we're focusing on being top of mind, that's really what we want to be. We want to be the kind of people that go, hey, you need to call Woodall because those guys really know what they're doing, or they're going to take care of you. And even if they do make a mistake, listen, they made a mistake on my roof, but they made it right. That's the type of stuff that I want people to say about our company, is not that we're perfect, but that when we make a mistake, you can actually get somebody on the phone still when they're done. Which is just a huge part of this industry and has been a big battle. And honestly, not too many people do that well. So it's very easy to just do it right, which is part of being a good steward of the jobs that we've been given and doing them excellently. So if we do that, we're almost kind of setting ourselves up for you're just natural marketing. People just say, hey, these are the people, go call them, So in our area, that's what I would say that we've built. But when we move into a new market, we're starting out fresh. which takes a totally different approach rather than
Right.
what we've taken, our normal service area where we've been for 20 years. People know who we are. There's no question about that. So that's a challenge that we're going through right now. That is something that we're trying to figure out. How do we do that the way and retain who we are? Because we don't want to be the company that just is selling you something or knocking on your door because you have a shingle blown off and, hey, yeah, we can help fix that for you. But we don't want to be like just a door-to-door salesman for roofing that's just trying to hope that you pull the trigger on something. We're not trying to be that. We want to be available, but we're not trying to be pushy, So that's a different discussion when we move into this new market, I think, that we're having right now and we're going to continue to have.
Okay. So over that 4 to 5 years when you were kind of changing, what was the biggest challenge in figuring out who was a good fit and who wasn't? How did you work through that?
Well, the hardest thing was figuring out, like say somebody's having some difficulty in a position they're in. The hardest part for us was figuring out, would they be better in another position or not here?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a really close-knit environment here. When we service our customers, we have a great culture and that spills out. We don't have guys, screaming and yelling and all that type of stuff, which is really typical for construction. I mean, in my past, is what I'm used to, right? Is like just some really intense environments at times because there's some pretty strong personalities. We don't really have that here. We have a pretty high level of flexibility here within the company with our employees. And because of that, sometimes we waited too long and kept people too long that maybe shouldn't have been on the bus and moved them around too many times trying to find something that maybe they just weren't for us. That was a big challenge. And that happened several times. Finding those right people, like we've discussed before, we stopped hiring for roof experience as the primary thing. And we started looking at, okay, who's a good person in operations that we know? They may not know anything about roofing, but man, they're operations professionals. They know what we're doing. So like one guy we have here who runs our general operations division, who doesn't really know much about roofing, but is a Six Sigma black belt and has been in manufacturing quality assurance for years. We've had high quality assurance, but when we hired him about 2 years ago, we put a few things in place. We have the highest quality score in the Atlantic for our commercial roofing, which is what he's primarily overseeing, by just putting some, like, it seems off the wall to people in the industry, but off the wall quality assurance controls in on a roof that he used to use on a manufacturing line, and so like using some folks that have such a very wide array and various backgrounds, teaching them the specifics and the technicalities of our industry, but letting them shine in areas that maybe we wouldn't find in the industry already. That's been the difficulty, but I think that's what has set us up for some really positive results. And how we've mitigated the issue of finding who and how many, and that's hard. Do I get the person before I get the work so we can service it well, or do I get the work and find the person? That is a conversation we have here probably once a month, maybe twice a month, so something we're working through, but I think we've got a good handle on our model.
So how would you describe your leadership style, Lars?
I am a tenacious person, and it's hard to be around me if you're not willing to go push, like get things kind of across the line. I've done every job here. I've put roofs on, I've loaded trucks, and my leadership style is I try to set the bar high for our folks, but nothing that I'm not willing to do alongside anybody. And I don't know how you would describe that leadership style, but I'm really focused on equipping everybody to the level in which they can be equipped and coming alongside them. So like I tell my leadership team all the time, the way I view myself is I'm at the bottom of this org chart, and my job is to push this thing up and go, okay, let's go, everybody, let's go. And if they're not able to continue to go with us, they might have to get off. You know what I mean? But it's to try to encourage people to continue to innovate. So I don't know. I feel like I'm a good encouraging leader. My intention is to try to refine folks, find them everything that they need so that they can succeed. I don't have to be an expert in what they do, but I need to find what they need so that they have it and that they're well equipped, and support them when I need to. So when I think about this question, I think about who do I know of in the leadership world of all the types of people, what I think that I would find myself as. And I struggle to answer that question because I've been asked that question more than once. So I don't know. That might be a good question for my colleagues to ask my colleagues more than me. But anyway, I hope that sheds some light on that.
Yeah, the two words that come to mind listening to you describe that is kind of supportive driver,
Yeah.
right? You're a driver, no questions asked,
Yeah.
right? But a supportive driver.
Yep. Yeah. I think that that's exactly right. We all take the working genius here. My two working geniuses were tenacity and discernment, which is 100% there. That's where I thrive. So I'm like always asking questions and going, okay, well, how do we do that? Maybe this will work. What do you think about this? Can you do that? Those are the types of questions that I have. And I'm like, we need to get this done by this day, but how do you think? And I think that that's right. I try to be supportive, but we have a mission here and we're going to move. That's how I view it. And I'm willing to, I'll be out front all day long, but these people are what make this business, not me. This is not my kingdom here. This is us trying to go after stewardship, excellence, and growth. That's what it is. And so, I try to set the tone and push people to that direction in a positive way. Not, I'm not a slave driver, but a driver nonetheless.
Yeah. Right, there's different kinds of drivers. So
Yeah.
For what you can share, so come on, what's the 3 to 5 year? Where do you want to be 3 to 5 years from now? I know, the owner wants grow. So what's the 3 to 5 year growth plan?
So we are in the process currently of opening a new office in a familiar market to us, almost a satellite. Within the next 2 years, we want to be operational in a completely new market to us. It can be familiar, but it's new. We are in the process of doing research about where that might be, looking at demographics. We're looking at age of household, median income, all these things that are going to make sense about how do we plant a healthy business in a place that has a need, and roofing is always a need. And so in the next 3 to 5 years, we're looking at having 2 additional locations apart from our headquarters here in Murray that are fully operational. But we want to make sure that they retain as much as possible the culture that we've built here at the headquarters, right? So, like in 3 years, I would love if I were to wave my magic wand, we would have a project management system that's scalable, which we're working on putting in place right at this moment, accounting system that's scalable, so that when we start going multi-site, when we start having multiple people and multiple types of people across a large region, which is hard to steward people that are 3 hours or 2 hours away from us, how do we give them the tools that they need to grow something successful in these areas? And so in 3 to 5 years, it's done. It's the way in my mind that, at least 2 locations are done. And we're making a positive impact on that community. We have a successful business that gives good jobs to good folks. That's the 3 to 5 year plan. There's a lot of little steps in there that we've got outlined to kind of get us to that point, but that would be the big goal. And obviously we know that'll increase the revenue of our company and everything like that. So.
No, that's great. That's awesome. Can't wait to see you achieve that. So for listeners, Lars has shared a lot about putting vision and purpose into a company and then using that to build the team, to build how we serve our clients, to build the messaging for our marketing. Lots to learn here. I highly recommend you listen to this one a couple times. So Lars, last few questions I've got for you here, kind of quick ones. So first, what's been your key to success?
My key to success is hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. If you can persistently do the small things well, you're probably going to be able to handle the big things when they come. Or you're not going to be so blindsided by the big things when they arrive. And so for me, I have leaned into my tenacity to drive and do the research and do everything I can within reason, understanding that there's a whole bunch of factors that are outside of my control that I can't change. But if I can do the little things well, be just fine with the big things. And surrounding myself with people who are already there. And so if I can do the little things well and pick up some of those pieces along the way, that's the key to success. It's like what people say, experience is a cruel teacher. It gives a test first and a lesson later. Well, why don't you go talk to people who've had the test already? so that when the experience comes, you're sort of ready for the test. It's like when you go to school and you're like, hey, asking the, upperclassmen, when you took this test, what do I need to know?
Right.
It's that type of thing.
Yeah.
You may not do well, but at least you have an idea. That's a huge part of it. Faithfulness in the little things. So,
Yeah, excellent. So what's your number one piece of advice for other business owners?
I think it would be that, we get so bogged down in the details and trying to grow this thing ourselves. What we really do is we posture ourselves for growth. The growth has to come. You can't make people do things, but you can posture yourself for availability for when they do. And so I would say, rather than focusing so much on how do we grow as far as like getting a bunch of revenue in here, posture yourself so that when you do have a bunch of revenue, you're not changing who you are and what your core values are.
Right.
You keep your core values and you're able to grow and still retain that, because the danger is that you have to grow so fast that you lose those things you're committed to, like excellence.
Right.
Your quality starts to slip, or you're not doing as well. And that is my biggest fear. I don't want to lose excellence for the sake of growth. I want to maintain excellence, and then then grow as we need, which is sustainable. That's how we view it here, is like we want sustainable long-term growth, and excellence, I think, is where you put your eggs in that basket. I think that's where you move.
So what's a book you're reading or listening to these days, or have recently, that you would recommend to other business leaders?
Yeah, I've got two, if you don't mind. My first one is, I just finished reading, it took me like 3 days. It was so good, but a book called Endurance. It's about Ernest Shackleton and a voyage that they did around World War I to cross the Antarctic, and they got stuck there in the worst place in the world, most difficult place in the world, and all his crew survived. One of the biggest things that I learned from that book is he hired people that he liked. It was to bring on this voyage across the sea using a boat that had a steam engine on it to the most perilous place in the world. I think about all that now. I'm just encouraged. Like, he had professionals on his boat, right? There was meteorologists and cameramen and people who were real professionals. Okay, but he hired them because he thought they would fit, which is mind-boggling to me. And they all survived. They stayed positive in the middle of it. And they were like in the Antarctic for like a year and a half with no radio, no nothing, and we're on their own. It's just crazy to think of that. Another one, we're doing a professional development study here at the office through the book called Crucial Conversations, which is an amazing book because we all have conversations and they all get crucial really fast. And so my thought process is if you're a better communicator at home for this book, you're a better person for it. And you'll be a better employee here because we can actually talk about something and deal with something rather than dealing with each other. Let's deal with this issue rather than dealing with each other, because it's really not about us and me and you. It's really about, we're focused on this goal, right? So those are two books that I highly recommend that I've been just going through recently.
Okay, awesome. So before I ask you my last question, so if people want to get in contact with you, learn a little bit more about you, what's the best place for them to go to learn about you and then contact you?
The best place to get in touch with me is probably LinkedIn. I have no other social media. I'm a little averse to it. I only have LinkedIn for professional reasons. So if you want to get in touch with me to ask questions about that, on LinkedIn is a great place to connect. And then on our website, woodallcompanies.com, my email's on there and our phone number's on there. So easy place to get in touch with me.
Awesome. All right. So my last question for you today, what inspires you the most right now?
I think what inspires me the most, what gets me out of the bed, is I feel like I'm doing what I'm called to do.
Okay.
And I think that's a lot greater than me. And
Mhm.
so I get out of bed because, I have a family that I need to take care of and all that, but I'm living to honor the Lord. So for me, this is what I think is doing that. And so I'm driven for that. So focusing on doing that the best that I can, working hard, even if I'm not talented, that's inspiring to me. And I have a lot of really great examples in my life of that. If I named all of them, we'd be here for a long time. But that's inspiring to me, just understanding my personal mission, why I'm here and doing this. Because that helps me whenever things get hard here. This is not, because it's not always roses in business, right?
Right.
It can be difficult. So knowing the real reason why you're doing it, and it shouldn't be money, because money, that's elusive. A lot of that you can't really can control, right? The focus should be, what am I doing really? It's okay to make money. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. But whenever it's not there, whenever it gets difficult or your cash is tight or something like that, if that's what's most inspiring to you, you're going to be really in the dumps. So it has to be something else, right? If it's something else, it'll sustain you through those times so that when you're ready to make the money or, to be successful, I think you'll be just fine.
Right. All right. So this has been Lars Griggs. He's the CEO of Woodall Roofing and Exteriors, and he has shared so much today about transformation that he's been through with the company, that he's then launched into his role as CEO and carrying the company forward. Lars, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. I appreciate it.
We really appreciate it. So make sure you like and subscribe so you get notifications for future interviews. And I will see you all in the next interview. Thanks.